Thank you. I'm super happy to be here. I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Life is good. Very blessed.
Yes.
I'm grateful to be on your podcast and sharing this platform with you. I appreciate the invite.
Yes. It's been like a long time coming. First of all, I always like to share how me and my friend have met, right? Like the
Right.
journey to us becoming friends and how like that's significant. And even to why I think someone like you can share your story and how it can impact others. And that's really what this is all about is to really bring forth the stories of many different women from different walks of life. Because it's interesting that you may know someone, but you don't know their story. And I think that's unique because that's exactly what defines that person. And so, with that, Sarah and I met through mutual friends, right? I can't remember the exact day, but like I remember it was like through people that we've known.
So I would say we met because Mike knew Trey,
Yep.
and it was an early conversation in our kitchen. Mike
Yes.
was coming by to pick up a charcuterie box.
Yep.
And he talked about Omni starting some kind of workout or health
That's right.
initiative.
Yeah.
And I was instructing at Genesis at the time.
Mhm.
So Trey's like, well, if you need help, my wife can help you.
I do. Okay. Yes. It's coming back. And then we put together the Move Boot Camp.
Yep.
And we started that about 2 years ago. So we did this health initiative in Topeka, Kansas, where we did a free boot camp in the community. And
Yep.
I just remember your spirit and your fire. And you were just like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. So that was the first time I met you was in
Mhm.
that meeting where it was, okay, let's get together. Who's going to start this workout, this free boot camp? And that
Mhm.
was the first day I met you.
Yeah. That was a good
Guns
time.
blazing.
Yes. From the beginning. And so from there, we honestly just stay connected. And then you had a baby,
Yep.
Imani.
Yep, I sure did. I kept instructing boot camp and going to boot camp as long as I could.
Yeah.
I was pregnant in
Yes.
there, getting to it until I
Girl,
couldn't
working out
anymore.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've definitely stayed connected, and I appreciate that, whether it's usually text. I would say we mainly connect
Yeah,
via text or calling. Actually, call
definitely.
Danielle. Don't text.
It gets lost in translation because I'm like doing one thing, I read your text and then I reply in my head. I'm like one of
Yeah.
those people and then then I reply and then sometimes I'm like I get distracted and then I'm like, did I reply to that message? She didn't respond back. And
And
then
you're on the go, girl. I
yeah.
understand. And I text books. So when I text, it's like this long.
Yes. So yeah, our journey has been very unique and I think beautiful because I really have always felt just drawn to you. You're just always that go-getter, like, come on, let's do it, kind of person, like just never afraid. And I think there's beauty in that. And so, but what I really want to get to is the story of Sarah and how when we connected the other night, you shared so many things with me
So
that
much.
I'm like, wait, what? Like, this is who you are? And so I think it really like stirred my spirit to just be reminded that you really don't know who people are until
Yeah.
you know their story. And so what I really gathered from it all was you went from a space from like surviving to thriving. And so I remember you were saying to me, you were like, but I don't feel like I've made it or thrived. I'm like, but look at your story. Look at where you came from,
Right.
And so I want to go back to that. And I'm sure there's many people who even see you and they say, like, Sarah's always put together. She's always smiling. And she's a hard worker, like always with Trey, always like ready to like get business done,
Yeah.
And so I think there's a reason for that. There's like a fire that comes with that. And so I want to get to the root and I want many people to really know the young Sarah. And so let's go back to the time that you mentioned to me about, you kind of like getting brought up in your family.
Mm-hmm.
You were kind of in a space where you grew up around drugs. You grew up around just the mindset of like poverty a little bit
Yep.
and then that transition. So like let's dive into that.
Okay. Well, we won't have enough time to unpack everything. So we're going to hit some highlights. As you know, we spent 3 hours the other night,
Yeah.
maybe 3.5.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even everything. I
Mhm.
kept thinking about it days later. I'm like, man, there's so much I still didn't even mention. So there's no way we're going to unpack it all. But taking it back as far as childhood, let's see. I have two real sisters. My older sister's 2 years older, younger sister 2 years younger, same mom and dad. And then our parents divorced when I was in third grade. Um, and we were in Wichita at the time. So I was born and raised in Topeka,
Mhm.
but my dad worked for AAA. When I was very young, he was an over-the-road trucker, not really home a lot. And then he worked for AAA, and they sent him to Wichita to start the fleet in AAA. So it wasn't even in Wichita until like my dad went there to start it. And he just worked nonstop, like 70, 80 hours. This is completely normal. And maybe diving in a little early, but my husband and I have conversations now where to me that was a form of love. Like I didn't see my dad a lot, but you go to work, you make money, you keep a roof over my head.
Mhm.
Like that's how you show me you love me.
Right.
I've learned a lot. So, just we'll get to that towards the end. So parents divorced. My mom came back to Topeka with my two sisters. We moved to a trailer park in North Topeka. And that's probably where, like, poverty mindset really set in, when my parents divorced, then my mom was single at the time. I remember getting adopted as a family that year and, like, being excited that we were getting twin beds. Like, we were getting twin mattresses, and that's what we were getting for Christmas, and that was so exciting. And my mom was getting a bread maker that she wanted. So, that was probably the start of it. My mom worked at a bar in Oakland. It was called TJ's at the time,
Mhm.
and it's had many names since then. That's where she met my stepdad. So he comes into the picture. We moved from the trailer park over to Eastboro. So people familiar with Topeka,
Right.
um, Eastboro is low income, but we move in. He has two kids of his own,
Mhm.
and he's a dump truck driver. So, still in trucking, but I mean, just he's working for other people. Like, we're barely making ends meet, doing the best we can. And it was rough. We were still loved. We still ate. We were taken care of.
Right.
But it was definitely, there were times that we're looking in the couch cushions to find change so that we could buy milk. We're going to, different food pantries for food. We just ran around and played all day. We didn't do Christmases because in dump trucking in Kansas, you get laid off through the winter. So it was like, and we knew it, and it really didn't affect us kids,
Right.
it was just what we were used to.
Mhm.
And then my stepdad ended up buying his own dump truck with the help of my grandpa. Not a whole lot of help, and it was a piece of crap truck.
Yeah.
Um, but
Just
it was
raggedy down.
yeah,
Truck. Yeah.
yeah, but it was his own. So things I wasn't thinking about then, but fast forward to the future where I meet Trejor and I meet my husband and he wants to own his own business and be an entrepreneur and we're looking
Right.
for a food truck. It's not a dump truck, but it's still trucking.
Right.
We're still on the road.
Yeah.
So things that just happened in the past that you have no idea what God is doing
Mm.
that's preparing you for the future
Yes.
at all. And just going through when you start a business, depending on what line of work you're getting in,
Mhm.
you're not rolling in the dough the first year
Right.
or the second year.
Yeah. They always say
Maybe not the third year.
yeah, if you're not in debt as a business owner, like something's wrong, because
Yeah.
technically, like you're just always in debt, like not in a bad way, but there's just always stuff to be paid for.
Yeah, exactly. And building up clientele, things like that. So I seen my stepdad go through so many breakdowns,
Mhm.
not emotionally, like mechanically on the
Yeah.
truck, so we're barely making ends meet and then something happens on a dump truck that costs 10, 20,000, so
Mhm.
yeah, just very low income. Um
I want to get to the space where you talked about, and I know you probably like gloomed over it, but we'll get to this part where you even talked to me so intimately about how you came about like meeting God and
oh
how
yeah.
he became a part of your life. and how, like, you weren't raised in a church or anything. You kind of just, if anything, God found you. And now it's like you are operating in this as a whole new person. Speak about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot happens between my childhood and finding God.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we want to glaze over all that before we get to the finding God part. I mean, I went through an abusive relationship
Mhm.
for 12 years that I kept going back to. And it was really when was released from that relationship where I finally made the decision and knew in my heart that I was letting it go.
Right.
That was finally the time that I found Jesus. And um, I know I wanted to learn more about Jesus. I wanted to learn more about the Bible. I wanted to go to church.
Right.
There was definitely that curiosity. I just, like you said, I wasn't raised in the church. I think my mom sent me to vacation Bible school one time where this short bus picked us up and my siblings, and we go to this place. And
Yeah.
I just remember they're talking about the blood of Jesus, and there's like him hanging on a cross with blood. And I am
You're like,
like,
what is
take
this?
me home. Where am I? Mom, come and pick me up.
Yeah. You're like,
Get me
what
out of
is
here.
this? Oh gosh. Wow.
Funny experience that
That's
I just remember.
hilarious.
And I had to be in like fourth grade. I was
Yeah.
so little, but I'm like, where did my mom send me?
Gosh,
My
yeah.
goodness. There was always that curiosity though. And even towards the end of my relationship with my children's father,
Mhm.
um, we tried to go to church. I tried to open up a Bible,
Right.
but it just didn't make sense. Nothing
Mhm.
sunk in. And in hindsight, when I think back on it, it's because I was in a relationship that God had not ordained. I was not
Right.
where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, I really wasn't feeling the Holy Spirit or
Mhm.
connecting. I wasn't able to connect
Right.
because I was in something that was not for me.
Mhm.
And it was amazing. Just how I met God and the revelations that I had after that. I remember I separate from the boys' dad. I remember they were with their dad, so I was home in my house all alone.
Yeah.
And the house I was in Oakland.
Mhm.
It's a house I had since my stepdad passed away.
Yes. I remember this
And
story.
yeah, I called
Yes.
it like a Cracker Jack box, and
Yeah.
it literally falling apart. Like
Mhm.
since the day I got it, I've put so much work into it just to
Mhm.
make it livable.
Like, you were
Um,
in there, like, hands and feet putting it
yeah.
together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And I got it about the time I was pregnant with my second son.
Mhm.
Um, and when I conceived my second son,
Yeah.
actually, I was living with my dad. I was separated from the boy's dad because even at that time, I was trying to get out of this relationship.
Great.
And then I got pregnant. I
Yeah.
didn't know God. So in my head, having no relationship with God, I'm like, oh, well, this must be a God thing.
Mhm.
I know that babies come from God. So he must be
Girl.
telling me that I'm supposed to be in this relationship.
Yes.
Um,
You just said a whole lot. Okay, sorry.
yeah.
Let's pause for a second because um so on this, like, podcast, I always say that, like, we're always going to be transparent. We're always going to be open because the more you share, the more you help other women feel
Oh,
seen.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I always say, like, your vulnerability is your superpower. And so I remember even you sharing your experiences with your previous relationship that was abusive, and like how we connected in a space where I was like, girl, I've been there before too, where you're like, this has to be a God thing. And so you're
Yeah.
kind of like, in essence, trying to make things work, force yourself to stay in something that you already know
Yeah.
is like not for you. And so if you can like speak to the women that are possibly in a space where they may feel like, I love this person. I want the best for them, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to be with them.
Right.
But it's like we've also been in that space where you know what it's like, or the thoughts you have when you're with that person, and a part of you feels as if I don't want to know what life is like without him. What if I miss out on something? What if he's with someone else? It's like all of these thoughts
Yeah.
that we have that keep us like in bondage. And so
Yeah.
for you, it's like, talk to me about, when was the time that you said, okay, this is it? Like, I have got to go. Like, this is definitely not of God. And then remind me how long you guys were together.
Probably like 12 years,
Yeah. So that's a
overall.
long time.
Yeah.
And that's hard to just
and you
Okay.
have
So
children together,
yeah. Yeah.
and from the outside looking in, and it didn't start abusive. I don't
Right.
know if
Of
any
course.
abusive relationship starts
Right.
abusive.
Exactly.
Um,
It's like rainbows and butterflies.
right, right. And we're young. We met in high school.
Mhm.
We have children together.
Mhm.
We own cars together. Um, both smart.
Right.
We're both have intelligence to us.
Yeah.
So we're buying a house together. From the outside looking in, it looks like we're doing everything right.
Right.
And it was just bits and pieces of disrespect along the way,
Hmm.
red flags that I ignored. Um,
I'm glad you admitted that
yeah,
because we know that we're
yeah,
ignoring some stuff.
right, right. So a lot of things like little tidbits, and I'm just a very passive person,
Hmm.
sweep it under the rug. I have,
Same.
thick skin,
Yeah.
so a little jab here and there, like I'm probably gonna let it go. I'm not gonna take it personal. I don't take
Yeah.
things personal. But then it builds up and it builds up and
Hmm.
it got worse. To really, as you were speaking about just being in this relationship and going back and forth, you love this person, you don't love this person. If God's not in it with you, which, like I said, he wasn't, and I realized this later, it's not love. I
Yeah.
didn't know love
Mhm.
at all. So to
Right.
me, personally, in my faith, if you don't know the love of God, you're not going to know love from anybody at
Mhm.
all. You're not going to be loved correctly.
That's good.
So finding Jesus, understanding the love of God, and then my husband that comes into the picture. And now I know what love is and being
Mhm.
loved correctly and being
Right.
respected. But just going back to the relationship with the boy's father, there were times that I'm like, I'm better than this.
Mhm.
I would leave and I would take the boys and I would stay with a friend. And then
Yeah.
I'd end up coming back, because
Yeah.
you've
That's
missed
all you
some, or
know.
yeah, or that's all you know. That's where you're
Yeah.
comfortable. Yeah, just all the things. So there were those moments. It just got so messy towards the end where it actually got physical a few times. And then it got to the point that, we went out for my birthday, 2017. It was February 2017.
Mhm.
So there's alcohol involved. We're at a club,
Mhm.
just all the wrong things happening. And I end up on the way home, I'm driving
Mhm.
70 miles an hour down the highway. Things, conversations happening in the car, and he ends up like throwing his fist all over the place, and I take a hit to the side of my face. So at
Mhm.
this point, I'm punched in my face, black
Wow.
eye, face swollen. I'm lying to my employer that I took a softball to the face, which is a complete lie. So I'm going into work.
Wow.
And I'm sure all the people I work with have figured it out later because after that, they know that I
Right.
separated and whatnot. But even
Yeah.
after getting punched in my face, I went and I stayed with a friend for
Mhm.
3 months. Her and her husband welcomed me into their basement. The boys were going back and forth.
Mhm.
Um, and I still went back. I was
Mhm.
with them for 3 months, and it was um,
And what in that moment said, "I need to go back"?
right. I mean, everything in me is like, this isn't right. This isn't where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what's right, but I'm trying to figure it out. Figuring out life without Jesus, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Period. Um, so, but I remember he's like, bringing me flowers and buying me massages and just blowing up my phone and
Right.
doing all the right things,
Right.
because it's not like the verbal abuse or what turned into physical abuse was happening every day. It
Right.
was sporadic,
Right.
But
But you're getting, like, blindsided by the gifts and
yeah,
just everything that's coming to you.
yeah, things like that. And I don't want to say that I was 100% innocent in all the things
Right.
happening in this relationship,
Right.
So I want to tread lightly and give grace and give mercy because, I know I still co-parent with this person.
Right.
I know people change. I know people can become better. And with the grace and mercy that I'm giving,
Yeah.
because I have to be intentional about going back in my word and saying, I'm supposed to forgive. I'm supposed to live like Jesus. I'm supposed to try to help my enemies or what have you.
Right.
Um, And that's what I do. So I try to walk in a way that I could even make that person a better person,
Right.
you know,
Definitely.
um, and pray for that person and do all the things. So yeah, that's a little bit on overcoming. I do think that is a huge part of my testimony that does
Mhm.
need to be shared. Because I go back to living with him, and there's a part in there too where we own this house together, and we're like, we're gonna move to the beach.
Mhm.
Okay, we're about to pack up our stuff. We're taking our kids. We're gonna
Yeah.
move to this happy place,
Yeah.
and we move out of our home.
Mhm.
We move to the rental house, which is the little Cracker Jack box
Yeah.
that was our rental house.
Mhm.
We moved there, and then I'm working because I've always worked my tail feather off, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty handy. So
Definitely. Always hard working.
yeah, we remodel this house,
Mhm.
like flooring is going in that I'm doing till
Mhm.
1 o'clock in the morning, all night on the weekends. We're
Yeah.
getting this house ready to sell.
Right.
We go to Galveston, which was a big no.
Mhm.
Um, we go
It's not
down.
all that nice, y'all, okay? Galveston
Yeah.
ain't all that
It's
nice.
not, it's not. It's not what I was expecting, and I could just feel it, like, just the energy between, like, the energy the whole entire trip down there
Yeah.
was bad. You
Mhm.
know, like, we had some bad experiences with the hotel. We try to go to a different hotel. It's still a rough experience.
Mhm.
It's a struggle the whole trip, so
Yeah.
just these red flags that I look back on and I'm like, "Man, God was just telling me this is not
Girl,
it."
wake up. You
Yes.
ever just, like, have
Yep.
this, like, image of God that's like, "Girl, I've been knocking on your door every day. Wake
Yeah.
up." And we're still like, "Yeah, I see you. I hear you, but Imma
Yeah.
just go one more time. Imma
Yeah.
just, like."
I can handle this. I
Right.
can
"I
figure it
got
out.
this,
I'm strong. I've made it this far. I can do this in my own strength.
girl."
Because you don't know. You don't know. Yeah, you
But
just
I
don't.
think it comes from a space of like we are, and that maybe I can only speak for myself and you can tell me if you felt different. But for me, I think the things that kept me going back was I was afraid. I was afraid that I was going to miss out on something. Like the fear of FOMO is so real. And then
Mhm.
also just I wanted to be like his one. I wanted to
Yeah.
say like I'm the one that helped him change in this way.
Yeah.
Until God said, "You don't ever you will never have the power to do that. And it
Right.
doesn't matter if it's your husband, but you can't change anybody.
Right.
And so you have to let that go."
Yep.
And so I think when you tell me about the time of like when you were in the kitchen and you were like having this moment with the Holy Spirit, like crying your eyes out, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
had that moment with God in the closet
Yeah.
to where he was like, "Honey, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, get up and it's time for you to move on. Like, you
Yep.
have to go." And so I just, when you feel it from your head to your toes, come on now,
Oh,
you got
yeah.
to move.
Yes, absolutely.